Welcome back, Defenders. In our last update video, President Trump issued an ultimatum to the Russians: end this war within 50 days, or else face crippling sanctions and tariffs from the United States. What's Russia's reaction? Putin remains silent, but Kremlin mouthpieces reject Trump's latest war ultimatum. This is what Putin does anytime Russia gets bad news. He just kind of disappears for 3 days and doesn't say anything. And I'm sure that Putin is confident he can get Trump on the phone at some point and convince Trump to chicken out. And maybe Trump will. So we can't pay attention to what the Russians say. Let's watch what they do. And there's no indication that the Russians want to stop this war. Mass attack hits cities overnight as Ukrainians brace for 50 more days of Russian terror. On the night of the 16th, the Russians launched 401 drones and missiles. More civilians were killed. And this is a strange detail. Trump's envoy to Ukraine, General Kellogg, is in the capital city of Kyiv. He arrived on Monday and he's staying the entire week. And because Keith Kellogg is in the capital city of Kyiv, Putin is choosing not to bomb Kyiv. Ukraine jokes about giving the US envoy a Ukrainian passport as Russia stops bombing Kyiv when Americans visit. Here's a tweet from Kira Rudik. She's a member of Ukraine's parliament. Ever since Keith Kellogg arrived in Kyiv, we've actually had a chance to sleep peacefully. Not a single attack. There's even a local proposal to ask him to stay for another 50 days. That would be nice. Here's the meme online that Envoy Keith Kellogg is the best air defense system for the capital city of Kyiv. What is the radius of a Keith Kellogg as far as protection? And Russia is focusing their drone and missile attacks on the east because they don't want to bomb Kyiv while Trump's envoy is in the capital city. So if this works, why don't more Trump officials go and visit Kyiv? Why not Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth or even J.D. Vance? And I do want to remind Donald Trump that Joe Biden was willing to take the train ride from Poland to go and visit the capital city of Kyiv. So if President Trump, who loves the optics, he loves the attention, he loves the photo ops, if Trump wanted to go to the capital city of Kyiv, I'm sure this would get him a lot of media attention and goodwill. President Zelensky made this joke about Keith Kellogg on an interview with Newsmax. Newsmax is kind of a pro-Trump cable news network here in the United States. And this is a positive and fair interview from Newsmax of President Zelensky. This is good news, and we're now getting the polling data. What do Republicans, what do MAGA think now that Donald Trump is willing to supply weapons to Ukraine? And all you have to do is mention Donald Trump's name, and it changes the poll results. So here's the question. Do you support or oppose continuing to give weapons to Ukraine for the conflict with Russia? And it was 48% of Republicans in favor, 36% against. But if you add Trump's name to the question, do you support or oppose Donald Trump's decision to continue giving weapons to Ukraine for the conflict in Russia? Now it jumps to 67%. We went from 48 to 67, a difference of plus 12 to plus 46. Now that Trump is in favor of sending weapons to Ukraine. And ironically, it then lowered with Democrats. It's still plus 34, but support for sending military aid to Ukraine, even if Europeans pay for it, it's now higher among Republicans than it is Democrats when you say this was Trump's decision. Trump announces Europe will pay for US weapons being sent to Ukraine. This is how Trump can justify this to his base, America first. And I know for my European and I know for people who watch my channel who are not American, this is kind of offensive. The United States is basically saying, we're willing to be an arms dealer, but we don't actually care to put our money where our values should be. So my response to this, and this was pointed out, Poland says let Russia pay for US weapons to Ukraine, not European taxpayers. And sure enough, this is being reported from The Telegraph. Europe plans to use frozen Russian assets to pay for Donald Trump's $10 billion weapons package for Ukraine. So this is not American taxpayers paying for these weapons. It's not even European taxpayers paying for these weapons. The plan is for Russian taxpayers to pay for American weapons to be used by Ukraine to kill Russian soldiers. So this deal, it's not an official framework yet. What is being purchased, what is being sent, the details are still being worked out. So what I think is going to happen is that European partners are going to purchase weapons from US manufacturers from the United States stockpiles. They're then going to transfer those new weapons to themselves, and they're going to send older equipment to Ukraine. This is what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years, and a tank that was built in the 90s is still a good tank. An artillery shell that was produced 30 years ago, if it has a 30-year shelf life, it can still be used and it's still effective. So European countries are going to be using frozen Russian assets to buy new weapons for themselves, which frees up inventory, and they can immediately send older weapons to Ukraine to be used on the front lines. This is a win-win-win for everybody. Trump said this: first Patriot missiles for Ukraine are being shipped from Germany, and Germany denies knowledge of Patriot missiles en route to Ukraine. This is just going to happen. As long as Trump is president, he's just going to say whatever he wants. Most of it is not true. He's kind of delusional, but he's on our side. He is trying to help a little bit at the moment, and he's going to continue lying and saying stupid stuff that isn't true, but whatever. We have people helping Trump get through this. And I want to shout out and thank the NATO secretary. This is Secretary General Mark Rutte. He's doing a fantastic job. I think Trump likes this guy. I don't think Trump really likes Macron or Starmer, but I think Trump on a personal level likes Rutte, and I think he also likes the new German chancellor. So Mark Rutte is on Fox News explaining to the American people why 50 days. And yes, there is a logic here. I think we should just do the sanctions now. Russia doesn't want to stop the war. But if there is a chance for diplomacy, this is the out. By putting a 50-day deadline on these sanctions and tariffs, this gives an opportunity for Beijing or India or Brazil or whoever to call Putin and say, why don't you take the deal? Why don't you stop the war before these tariffs get placed on us for buying your oil? Here's the NATO secretary making this argument.
So today, if you are in Beijing or in Delhi or you're in Brazil and you know that this is coming to you, you might want to call Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin and say, hey friend, we are still buying stuff from you, but you have got to get serious when it comes to these negotiations on a ceasefire or a peace deal, or otherwise we get hit by these secondary sanctions. That will be also an effect directly on Russia, of course. But this is really significant. And it is smartly designed by the president. Today, what Putin now hears from the American president and from the Europeans is that we will do whatever it takes for Ukraine to be as strong as possible when peace deals have taking place or peace negotiations will start, to be in the best possible place at that moment. And then on top of that, the threat of sanctions in 50 days on those who are still buying, so like Brazil, India and China, from Russia. So if I was in the Kremlin today, I would not be too happy, because this is a clear signal that President Trump is serious. He wants peace. He hates the fact that so many people lose their lives in Ukraine.
Bless this man. He is willing to say anything, to do anything to help NATO and help Ukraine, including praising Donald Trump and saying that Donald Trump is a genius. He's willing to do it. So this is the plan. Can we put pressure on China, India, and Brazil to put pressure on Russia to stop the war? And China pledges closer ties with Russia after Trump's sanctions threat. This is what the Chinese are saying publicly, but we don't really know behind the scenes what China thinks or feels. I don't think China cares one way or the other. I don't think they're going to put pressure on the Russians to stop, but I also don't think China is going to do anything additional to help the Russians at this time. There also is another angle to this 50-day window. This is pointed out by Catherine Belton. She's the author of Putin's People. This is an article from the Washington Post from Robin Dixon, and this is fascinating. I'm going to read this for you. Trump's new weapons deal and his increasing criticism of Putin's grinding military campaign have sparked an uneasiness among some factions of the Russian elite over the deepening conflict and fears that Putin could overplay his hand. The number of those who are upset with Putin for the fact that he could have stopped the war but didn't do it is growing. It is rather a matter of prevailing sentiment, a belief that there was a moment of opportunity squandered due to Putin's obstinacy. The head of the Russian parliament's State Budget Committee, Andrei Makarov, has even warned that the state could run out of money and ultimately cause Russia to repeat the Soviet Union's fate. Credit crisis, recession, it is all clear to everyone, but the political will is pointed in the other direction. Of course, entrepreneurs and economists are calling for caution in talks, but the military and diplomats are calling for a war to end. Given that there's this 50-day window to take Trump's deal, and Trump was offering the Russians a fantastic peace deal, all sanctions lifted, all frozen assets returned, Crimea will be internationally recognized as belonging to Russia, Russia can keep all the territory they've taken, Ukraine can never join NATO. It's a terrible deal for Ukraine, a fantastic deal for Russia, and Putin is rejecting it. So now if you're one of Russia's elite, you're an oligarch, you're a general, and you just want to get back to your old life from 5 years ago, hanging out on your super yacht off the coast of Greece or enjoying your Italian villa, you've got to be screaming, why aren't you taking Trump's deal? Why are you insisting on carrying on this war when it's destroying the Russian state? So will Russia's elites put pressure on Putin to stop this war by September 1st? And I don't think it'll have an effect. I don't think Putin listens to anyone underneath him. The guy has gone insane and he now enjoys these wars. Putin wants empire. He wants the Baltics. He wants Finland. He wants all of Ukraine. There's no deal that Trump can ever offer that Putin will take. But would Putin's inner circle, their oligarchs, take it? Yeah, I think they would at this point. Kyiv's drones for U.S. weapons. Zelensky says mega deal at work with Trump. Under the proposed deal, the U.S. would purchase Ukrainian drones while Ukraine would purchase U.S. weapons. This is a story not getting a lot of attention, but Trump is entirely transactional. And Zelensky now has something that potentially Trump and the United States military wants. Drone technology. Boat drones, air drones, any kind of drones. Because Ukraine has been the factory floor, the laboratory, for the last 3.5 years for cutting-edge use of drones. Drone missile, meet Odin, Ukraine's answer to Shahed kamikaze drones. Now in combat testing, the projectile-shaped drone is designed to act as a high-speed interceptor against Moscow's aerial onslaught, particularly from Shahed drones. These are the first pictures that I've seen confirmed of what these interceptor drones look like, and they just sit on the ground until a radar signal picks up a Shahed. They then take off and try to intercept. We're seeing promising results, like the initial testing has been good, and I'm sure Ukraine is going to continue making modifications. But this really does come down to economics. Can Ukraine's $1,000 interceptor drones really beat Russia's $35,000 Shaheds? So these Shaheds that Russia produces, because they're long range, they require more fuel or bigger batteries. Russia's trying to blow stuff up once they hit their targets, so you're paying for the explosives. Russia is also installing jet engines, so they go a little bit faster. So yes, I believe the per unit cost of a single Shahed is now close to $35,000. And if Ukraine can effectively shoot them down for only 1 grand, then Russia has to stop the attacks. This is a losing strategy once Ukraine proves this technology works. And once Ukraine has this technology, they're going to share it with NATO. They're going to share it with the United States. And the United States can share it with other countries like Israel. So this is no longer an effective strategy for Iran either. Ukraine's new rifle ammo explodes midair to kill drones and might blow up Russia's whole strategy. Ukraine is developing a mid-air fragmenting rifle round that could make Russian drones far less effective, forcing a return to costly artillery attacks. So this isn't Shahed drones, this is like normal FPV drones. We've been talking about what is the counter to these new fiber optic FPV drones coming from the Russians. And Ukraine has invented basically like a buckshot round that can be fired from a NATO standard rifle. Ukraine is deploying a newly developed counter-drone rifle round designed to be fired from a standard NATO rifle. This is an M4 or a CZ Bren. Basically, the bullet, when you fire it, breaks apart midair, so you're more likely to shoot down an FPV drone. So a Ukrainian defender day-to-day can have normal rounds in his gun, and then on his chest he can have these special buckshot rounds. And if there's indication that a Russian FPV is in the area, he can switch his cartridge and then have new exploding rounds. This is a good solution. This is progress, guys. Moscow mocks Trump's 100% sanctions threat as theatrical ultimatum. The Kremlin's attack dog Dmitry Medvedev responded to Trump with derision and said that Moscow was still awaiting the next round of peace talks. Medvedev's a drunk. He's not really worth paying attention to. So let's go to Kremlin State TV, and this is the latest clip from Russian Media Monitor. And you might be able to guess Solovьев is not happy about Trump's ultimatum. This is what Solovьев is saying. What is Trump doing? He says, it isn't me. He says, I am giving weapons to the Europeans. They will be giving them to Ukraine, which will conduct strikes. We understand that this is a lie. It's America. Therefore, we should clearly understand that we have to conduct a retaliatory strike against America and American forces. Yes, this is nuclear war. Ukraine is a poisonous thorn stuck in Russia's body and is fulfilling the goal of our country's gradual exhaustion so that the West can increase its forces and means to carry out a strike. That's it. This is Solovьев threatening to attack America while Trump is president. Interesting. Satellite images show Russia expanding nuclear sites across Europe and the Arctic. 4 out of 5 spotted locations are in or near Europe, including Belarus, Kaliningrad, and Russia's Arctic coast. So Russia is spending time and money basically upgrading nuclear facilities, and this is a waste of money. Russia for 3.5 years has not used a nuclear weapon, and they won't use a nuclear weapon, because if they choose to, everything for them will get worse, not better. So my opinion as a former nuclear and missile operations officer is, I hope they spend lots of money and lots of manpower trying to upgrade these facilities, because they're never going to use them. This is money and manpower they could be using to win the war in Ukraine, and they're choosing not to. So this was a headline someone shared with me. You don't need to worry about it. Russia's not going to use a nuclear weapon. Let's cover some other headlines. Russia quietly cancels flagship arms expo. Russia's defense ministry has quietly canceled this year's Army 2025 Military and Technical Forum, its largest annual defense exhibition where the country typically showcases its latest weapons and military innovations. Gee, I wonder why Russia doesn't want to put on a show this year. Russia's entire defense export industry is collapsing. They can't produce at a surplus to sell to foreign buyers. So why would you put on a show? And what military innovations? Are they going to have donkeys on the display floor for foreign buyers? 5 killed in helicopter crash in Russia's Far East. We mentioned in the last video that this Mi-8 helicopter went down in the Far East, but they found the crash sites and all 5 crew members on board lost their lives. Russia's POWs' families accuse Moscow of redeploying their loved ones after prisoner swaps. This is a problem for Ukraine, in that Ukraine wants to capture as many Russian soldiers as they can so they can use them in POW swaps. But what's been happening is that when these Russian POWs return to Russia, they're immediately sent back to the front lines and used in meat assaults. Russia views them as traitors for surrendering, and they only want them back so they can expend them. So this word of mouth is getting back to Russian POWs still in Ukraine. Russian POWs are allowed to talk to family members every so often, and family members are telling them, don't allow yourself to be exchanged. If you allow yourself to be exchanged, you're probably going to die, which is pretty dark. Russian coal industry faces mounting losses as dozens of companies near collapse. More than a quarter of Russian coal companies are at risk of a closure amid a deepening crisis in the coal industry. All the numbers are in this article. It's bad. It's bad for every industry in Russia. In this environment, the Russian National Credit Rating Agency has suggested that the Russian coal industry could experience a wave of consolidation over the next 12 to 18 months. So when a company goes bankrupt, all the equity in the company is wiped out. There's then a restructuring, they look for a buyer, the bondholders then become the new shareholders in this new merged company. So Russia still has a long runway of failing industries before there's a total economic collapse. But this is bad news. A lot of people are losing money, a lot of people are losing their jobs, and production and output continues to fall in every sector. Everything is going to continue getting worse, and we get to watch it over the next 6 months. This is a story that went viral. American father and vlogger tricked into frontline combat by Russia. Texas man joins Russian army to earn respect, gets lied to, and he is sent to the front line instead of a welding job. So this man's name is Derek Huffman, and he and his family moved to Russia last year. They fell for Russian propaganda, and they're so terrified of gay and trans people, they wanted to move to Russia to lead a more traditional life. They have a YouTube channel. It's not very big, guys. It's only 8,000 subscribers, and I'm guessing they gained most of these in the last 2 days in response to all this media attention. But basically, this guy was convinced to join the Russian military, and he was promised he would be a welder safely behind the front lines, utilizing his experience as a welder. And nope, they immediately gave him less than a week of training and told him he's going to the front lines to be used in a meat assault because his life doesn't matter. So his wife is freaking out online. She's posting that things are bad, and additionally, he's never been paid. The Russians have not paid him yet, and he's American. Why would they pay him? It's sad because this woman has 3 daughters, and these children are completely innocent, but their parents are nuts, and she's going to be a widow probably by this time next week. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Latvia delivered their promised 42 Patria armored personnel carriers. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of Latvia. Final video is from friend of the channel, Anastasia. I did a podcast interview with her about 2 months ago, and I also mentioned a fundraiser she was doing for a local kitchen in Kharkiv. This kitchen in Kharkiv provides meals for frontline soldiers, and it accumulated a substantial debt that needed to be paid off. So Anastasia helped out, and so did people in this YouTube community. We helped with the fundraiser. So this is her video thanking everyone who chose to donate and support this kitchen in Kharkiv.
Hello guys, so we are continuing the work of cooking food for everyone thanks to your donations. The guys are now free of the debt, and special thank you to DGG and Destiny and his community, to Jake Bro and to everyone who donated, and special thank you to our friend Devin Woodall who helped us to make this fundraiser happen. And the guys have something to say to you all.
Величезна подяка Анастасії Параскевовій та усім, хто долучився до цього збору. Ще раз дякую. Слава Україні!
Єй, героям слава!
Завдяки вашій допомозі ми можемо знаходитись в цьому приміщенні і готувати, допомагати хлопцям, допомагати дітям, допомагати всім, хто цього потребує. Ще раз дякую Насті за її велике серце добре і всім вам за вашу допомогу. Разом до перемоги. Слава Україні!
Yo!
If you didn't see the podcast episode I did with Anastasia, I'll link it down below. It's only got 75,000 views, so I know a lot of people skipped it. But this is a very, I think, interesting conversation we had. The comments are very positive, and for people who checked it out, they really enjoyed our conversation. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.